It is 6 o'clock, and I will call the March 11th, 2025 meeting of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors to order. We do have a quorum with all members present except for Ms. Lawson. Unfortunately, she's got the crud that's making its way through Wythe County. Couldn't be here tonight. But we do have Mr. Lauren Sloan from the Blue Ridge College of Evangelism to provide the invocation. If you would please stand and remain standing for the pledge.
Please bow your heads, please. The God of heaven, the creator of this universe, you control everything within your power. As I look at the beauty of Wythe County, I realize that there is a creator who has created everything that we see. As I stand here this evening, I would ask that the Board of Supervisors of Wythe County conduct business in this county by keeping the best interest for the citizens of this county. I hope they will be excellent leaders as they have been elected by the citizens of this county. But most importantly, these individuals should have a personal relationship with your Son, Jesus, who is the Savior of this world. You truly love your children by allowing your Son to be sacrificed on the cross, the instrument of death for our sins. Thanks so much for loving us by thinking the best and doing the best for us, providing with us a Savior. Please be with us this evening. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item on the agenda is always citizens' time. I'll call you up and you'll have 3 minutes and Mr. Cook will keep the time. The first person we have signed up is Miss Laura Davis.
Good evening. So my name is Laura Davis. I'm a citizen of Wythe County, and I wanted to come and talk a couple of minutes about where I work, which is Mount Rogers Community Services. My understanding is our CEO just met with Mr. Morgan, and he had asked that we come and provide more information from week to week and try to give you some data about what it is that we do. And so Sandy had called me after that meeting and asked me if I could come this evening. So I realized I only have a couple of minutes. One of the things I wanted to talk with you about, which I feel like is one of the more fun things that I get to do, is I'm the project director for one of our major projects called the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic project. That's a national model that's endorsed by the federal government, and it's seen as the nationally accepted way of doing behavioral health services. You might have heard of our sister project, which is the FQHCs, the Federally Qualified Health Clinics. It's the same kind of idea where we take behavioral health services and improve them for communities, but then also insert a piece of primary care as part of that. So you might be asking, how does this benefit us in Wythe County? Well, that's one of the things that I'm most proud of and really get excited about for this project. Is because it's not designed just for places that have a lot of resources, like the urban areas. It's specifically designed to help rural areas improve their healthcare systems. What does that mean for us? So, if you think about if you have a favorite restaurant chain or maybe a trusted hotel, if you're away from the area, you may be out of time or maybe you're in a rush, and so you think about, where am I going to stay tonight? I think about that. What's going to be safe for me as an option? Or what can I count on as their quality standards if I go there? And so I stay at Holiday Inns and Marriott's because I, as a woman, feel safe there, and I feel like it's going to be clean and they're going to have good customer service. So I know that I could stay in a Holiday Inn in Marion or a Holiday Inn in Charlottesville, and it should have the same kind of standards, the same kind of options that's gonna be offered to me. Well, that's exactly the idea behind this the certified behavioral health clinic model. So in other words, someone in Wytheville can walk into our clinics and expect to have the same menu of options, the same array of services, comprehensive services, that they would get if they went to Richmond. And I know, being someone who grew up in Southwest Virginia, that is incredible, that we would have that kind of option. Because I know that it's very difficult to get healthcare services in our area, and most of us, I know, I've had to drive to other areas. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to come back and talk more in detail. I do have a handout for you that gives a little bit of detail as far as like some of our accomplishments last year. And like I said, I know I only had a few minutes and this is last minute, but I'd love to come back and talk more about it for you.
Yeah, if you would give them to Mr. Barry.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next person we have signed up, I believe it's Jeremy Pickle.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even sign up.
Oh, okay. Did I get your name right at least?
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay.
It shouldn't be hard to pronounce Pickle.
All right, that's all we had signed up for citizens' time, so I'll close citizens' time. We'll move on to payment of invoices. Each board member has received in their board package a copy of the invoices that need to be paid. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to approve the invoices.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Burnett. Is there any questions or any invoice that any board member wants to pull out? Right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry, we'll start with you.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. The next item on our agenda is the minutes of our previous meeting, February 25th, 2025. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion by Mr. Smith, a second by Mr. Cook. Is there any corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Next item we have is old business. Mr. Barry, is there any old business?
I do not have any old business, Mr. Chairman.
One thing under old business was the question I had was, we talked about the road, was it Grandview?
Yes.
Have we made any, you were going to
Ah,
confer
yes.
with Mr.
Sorry.
Farthing?
We haven't finalized it. We have talked about what is probably going to be best to do would be what your all's recommendation was, approve Grandview with the road on it, and then the county attorney has opined that we can make adjustments to the other one, Bentwood. You all have the authority to make adjustments to that. If you
Okay.
wanted to make the adjustment to remove that property from it, we could run those calculations. It would just have to add that amount back to the other landowners in the process. I wish that VDOT was already finished with that road, and then we could do it all at one time, and we'd have the actual cost and the actual utility relocation costs and do it all at one time. If we want to wait a little bit longer and see if VDOT finishes that road and then try to change that before the tax season this year, we could do that.
Well, I think we've got some time to take action on it.
On Bentwood, and I
Yeah.
think Grandview, we probably need to take action by the next meeting since we had the public hearing at our last meeting.
Yeah, I'd have to check that time frame, but you might be able to wait another meeting before you.
I just want to make sure we still have it on the radar, because, anything else under old business? All right, moving on to new business. We've got a Wytheville Community College Board appointment. I understand we've had a board member that has to resign.
Yes, sir. Mr. Clark has had to resign from the position. He has also given us a copy of his resignation letter. It's in the information agenda, information packet. they've got the list of the qualifications they look for there and would like to have a name as quickly as possible if you all could consider.
And, excuse me, Dean Sprinkle has provided a lot of documentation, but there are certain areas that the community college system looks at for board members. So if you'll peruse those career paths or occupations, and if you know of anybody that would be interested, if you'll send it out to the board, Mr. Baird, and we'll see if we can't get that filled pretty quick. Anything else under that, Mr. Baird?
No, sir.
All right, the next item on our agenda is we've got a split precinct waiver from Mr. Counts.
I wish Mr. Counts were here to explain this idiocracy, in my opinion.
I'm glad you said it, because I read through it, and it's about as clear as mud, but it comes from the General Assembly, and I can say this since I'm not running again, sometimes they make things worse the more they get involved.
Fact. I understood when, like, we did a redistricting and the state did a redistricting and the times were off, and we had people that may be in East Wytheville for our purposes, but they were in West Wytheville for the state's purposes. But a town that is established as a town, and they have to have their own elections, in my opinion, does not count as a split precinct, but according to this, it counts as a split precinct. So basically, you are just voting to approve a split precinct for the town of Rural Retreat, the East Wytheville District, and the West Wytheville District. And that is because when you go in there to vote, you have to pick up a ballot for county people if you're only out in the county. If you're in the town, you have to pick up a ballot for the county people and also for the town people.
Those people in Richmond have nothing else to do but this.
Well, apparently not.
Well, I'll just say that ever since I lived in the town of Retreat limits, ever since I've got 2 tax bills instead of 1, I'm pretty confident knowing that I live in town limits.
Lennon thought that he told me, he said, I thought that we only had to do this like every, like, decennial, census and stuff like that, following it. But he's like, I've been advised we're supposed to do this annually. So we get to do this annually.
At some point, they're just going to call common sense.
That's definitely sure. Wow.
All right, we do have a request to approve the split precinct waiver. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the waiver as presented.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
I'll second
Have a second by confused Mr. Morgan.
it. Very.
Is there any questions or concerns about the motion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett, we'll start with you.
Aye.
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 So approved. All right. Next, we've got the Retreat Lake Campground bids. Mr. Baird.
Mr. Hankins, do you want to discuss this one first? I was going to send him on a print run. I just got some information for you all. I'll get started with it. The bids were received on Friday, March 7th for the Rural Retreat Lake Campground renovations. Performance Industrial Contractors was the low bidders. This is to redo the main bathhouse and restroom at the primitive shelter, and then also 3 bathhouses at the 3 bathrooms at the shelters. As you can see from the memo, it exceeds the budgeted funds. We could only do the main bathhouse and keep it within our budget, or we could look at amending and appropriating and doing the entire project.
So, Mr. Mayor, I guess one question I have, if you only go with the main bathhouse and the restrooms, would the, contractor that be interested in that, or would he?
According to what I understand from Mr. Kinser, yes, he would be. The bathhouse and the shelter, if we did the bathhouse and the shelter, yes.
My only concern is and I mean, I don't know about the shelter roof because I have climbed up there. But, you know, the bathrooms and bathhouses, restrooms, whatever you call them, they're in dire need of repair. And, you know, when I read that, you know, it reminded me of the project that we done out here at Adrian Park with the playground equipment. We're never going to recover the money that we've invested in that. It's a service that we provide to the citizens. And, you know, my question is financially, can we do it? And if we can, prices aren't getting any cheaper. And, you know, it is in my district, but, you know, it needs to be done. And I don't see it getting any cheaper if we keep the can down the road. You know, we made the playground project, you know, we made it come to fruition. And, you know, I know we've invested money to the pool and the upgrades to the pool, but these bathrooms out here, if you've not been to Retreat Lake in several years, they're pretty bad.
Yeah, they are.
And, you know, that's my take on it. And, you know, Mr. Bear, in all his fiscal conservatism glory, is not jumping up and down going, we can't do this. And he did not word his memo of, we can't do this. And been around him for the past 8 years. If we couldn't afford it, he'd be the first to let us know. Now, he doesn't get a vote, and in the past, sometimes he's lost that argument, but he has always done a good job of passing his opinion along.
And all I will say is my first visit to that shelter was probably 1979 or 1980. And I think it's still the same exterior to that bathroom that's there. We've probably replaced the toilets in there a few times, but it's the same building and it's the same problem up there. Probably 15 to years ago or so, we did replace the main bathroom in the RV section of the bathhouse. We put a whole new bathhouse in there, but the primitives and the shelters have never been repaired or replaced.
The health department did come yesterday to do their inspections on those facilities, but I've not seen the documentation on how we did. The staff member who was there is sick today, so I'll share that with you once it becomes available.
I'm assuming we have money from the budget
We can
saving
amend,
somewhere else.
yeah, you all, if you all want to proceed with this, just amend and appropriate an additional $130,000 and award this project, and it'll just come out of reserves.
Yeah, I mean, but looking at the other bids, it's,
Yeah.
I don't think we can afford to go
Yeah.
back out.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman. We'll amend and appropriate and move forward with the bid, sir.
For the total amount of $210,993.06.
Yes, sir.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second by Mr. Burnett. Is there any more questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved. Next, we'll move on to request from the sheriff's office. Mr. Bear?
Yes, sir. The sheriff provided some information to share with the budget committee about vehicles. You'll see the information attached on the package. They have included in their budget request next year funding for vehicles, but he has been advised that there is some price increases coming. There are some vehicles on the lot available Nobody here, I see, but the vehicles are available on the lot, and just wanted to bring up, if the board would want to amend and appropriate out of this year's budget, an additional $172,000 to go ahead and look at ordering the 4 additional vehicles. My response was that if we did that, we'd go ahead and take that out of next year's budget. It's just a matter of not having it in there for July 1st and just going ahead and getting them in advance. So just sharing that to you all for your all's consideration, recommendation.
And we currently have it budgeted for the current year that we're in, right?
We have budgeted the vehicles, and they have ordered the vehicles this year. So we amended and appropriated $230,000 back in August or so for them to buy vehicles this year. And this would be, thank you, sir, this would be amending another $172,000 into this year's budget out of the general fund for the purchase of vehicles.
And we'll replace that with next year's budget.
But then we will not put that in. Well, my recommendation would be just we would not put it in next year's budget, and that gives us the ability to go ahead and order them before the price increase and gives them the ability to get them. They've had a few that have been lost in the last, when I say lost, accidents or damaged in the last few months. So,
And they're aware that when we approve this, it'll be taken out next year.
I have explained. I've requested that. I told him it's up to you all to decide, but that was my recommendation.
Okay.
How many vehicles total would that be?
Before.
I know 4, but the 230,000.
Oh, the 230 they bought 4 with it, and then the everything they put in the vehicles on top of it, and then they used electronic summons funds or something else to buy another vehicle, if I remember correctly.
Concealed weapons.
Concealed weapons funds. Concealed weapons funds.
Very well.
So if you all want to go ahead and amend and appropriate this year, we would need action. If you just want to leave it in for budget discussions or just budget discussions next week and potential action following that, however you all would like to proceed.
How much would the increase be if we didn't do it now?
I think Sheriff said $2,000 a vehicle. It's about $8,000 next year. And my understanding even from the information was to at least order it by June, get the purchase order in by June 30th, but the sooner the better because they were on the lot.
Yeah, because there's a guarantee that, there's no guarantee after that they'll be available.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm conflicted out, so I'll open the floor for discussion or motions or whatever y'all want to do.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we proceed with purchasing the additional vehicles, just because of the uncertainty about being able to get them in a timely manner in the next fiscal year.
And I'll second that motion.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Smith, a second by Mr. Terry. Does it need to include the amend and appropriate?
Yes, absolutely.
Demand on appropriate.
Amend and appropriate $172,000.
Yes.
Sir, are you good with that, Mr. Terry?
Yes, sir.
All right, have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Next, we have a transfer request from the sheriff's office.
I would request someone make a motion to approve the transfer of the $13,703 from the electronic summons to the PAF and to amend and appropriate that amount to the police 3102146120 police supplies.
You know it's a good deal when Mr. Barrett requested.
When it's coming out of another fund, that's great.
I'll make that motion.
I'm sorry, Mr. Barrett, I shouldn't say.
You are correct, sir.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Terry. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second by Mr. Burnett. Is there any questions or
me.
discussion on that motion? All right, here none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Aye.
So approved.
Last, we have a narcotics petty cash fund of $5,000. We've received a request from the sheriff to increase it $2,500 to $7,500. I would request that you all authorize the increase to $7,500 and authorize staff to issue a check for $2,500.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Morgan. Is there any questions or discussion on that motion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Your vote.
So approved.
Sorry. Got my attention devoted.
If Mr. Chairman will allow me, there is one more request that is literally hot off the press. Thank you, Mr. Hankins. Came from the sheriff's office requesting to donate $12,600 to the Wythe County Public Schools, 6101 for their transportation of children during the state basketball tournament. These funds to be transferred from what they received in their photo speed account. These funds are currently in the general fund. Action would be, if the board wishes to do this, to amend and appropriate the $12,600 to the school board's budget for that.
All right, I open the floor up for a motion to approve the request.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Cook. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any questions or discussion on that one?
Do we know how much that's been generating for us? Because they predicted that it would drop off over a period of time as people got used to the cameras and they slowed down through the district, through the school zones.
The I have it somewhere.
Can we look at that
Yes.
offline and call the question? We got a motion and a second. Is that all right with you, Mr. Burnett? All right. All right, is there any more questions or discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
So approved. Anything else under new business, Mr. Barry?
There is a water committee recommendation that's headed out for you, if you will allow that to be added under the board reports, Mr. Chairman. Other than that, I do not have anything else under new business.
That was the one, the hard copy that you
Yes.
passed up? Okay. Just remind me, we'll do it after budget committee. We'll move on to board reports. We've got the Buildings and Grounds Committee.
Yes, Chairman. The Building and Grounds Committee met on March 4th, 2025, recommends renewing term service agreements for engineering services with the following firms: Hurt Profit, Matter and Craig, New River Engineering Incorporated, Thompson Linson, Feed and Forts, Thrasher, ZMM for architectural and structural services. The term will be for 1 year beginning April 1st, 2025.
All right, come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that recommendation? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
And that's all from the Building and Grounds Committee.
All right, we'll move on to Budget Committee. Mr. Smith.
The Budget Committee met on March 6, 2025, and made the following recommendations. Amending and appropriating $5,000 to account 1101-457-015 for the Sleep in Heavenly Peace organization.
All right, again, come from committee. It doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that recommendation? All right, here and now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Amending and appropriating $300,000 to account 3506-457-703 for the VDM Next Gen 911 PSAP grant award, revenue code 1103-325053.
Again, come from committee. It doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that recommendation? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
No other items, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Next, we've got the Water Committee.
Yes, Chairman, the Water Committee met on February 18th, 2025, and recommends the following for Barrett Mill Water Project. Number one, Division 1 proceed with the low base bid from Classic City for Barrett Mill Division 1 in the amount of $2,825,158.
All right, comes from committee. It doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion on that one? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Second item is Division 2 proceed with low bid from Hill Construction for Barrett Mill Division 2, deducting the first alternative for a bid of $3,945,560.
Again, come from committee. It doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion on that one? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
Third item, Division 3, reject the bid for this division and rebid this portion of work.
Again, come from committee. It doesn't need a second. Is there any questions or discussion on that one? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved.
And the fourth item is awarding of all bids contingent upon R&D approval.
All right. Any questions or discussion on that recommendation?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Rural Development is our
Development.
funding agency for all of this money, and we need to approve it contingent upon them approving all of these as well. If they don't approve them, then we go back to the drawing board with the company. But our preliminary information from Rural Development is everything is good here.
And I know a lot of people on Barrett Mill that live there and or that own property up there and like to build up there are gonna be very pleased. So, all right, is there any more questions or discussion on that one? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved.
And that was all we had, Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burnett. Move on to Board of Supervisors time. Mr. Burnett, since you got the mic hot, go ahead, sir.
The only thing I was curious about was Mr. Bears looking into the Grandview and Bentwood. And that was all I had.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Cook,
I have nothing at this time.
Mr. Smith,
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Morgan.
I have one item. This is actually in Mr. Burnett's district, but right there at Sheffey School, at the rear entrance to the cafeteria, there is apparently a lot of water comes off of that parking lot back there down into the homes on the opposite side of Route 94. And I would been asked if somebody could get out there and look and see what can be done about the water running off of that parking lot.
Anything else, Mr. Morgan?
That's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Terry.
The only thing I got, Mr. Chairman, is I want to kind of set the record straight and make it a public record announcement here is the Sheriff's Office has taken a lot of heat for the tragedy that happened down on 94 and with a gentleman getting run over. And people are blaming the Sheriff's Office for lack of investigative work and all kinds of crazy things are being said. But just so that people understand, the Wythe County Sheriff's Office did not investigate that. That was investigated by the Virginia State Police. So got those guys and gals at break. They do a fantastic job doing what needs to be done in our county, and we appreciate their service. And that's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Terry. I don't have much. Mr. Bears took care of all the requests I had, but I did want to say, you know, that, from a retreat graduate, I wish the boys and girls basketball team of George Wythe the best of luck Friday as they play for state championship. It was single A, small county. I think it speaks volumes to the dedication of the men and young men and women that play for those teams when a school can represent Southwest Virginia, Richmond, from the same school. We're retreating in Fort Chiswell. Unfortunately, their basketball season has ended. So when the Indians and the Pioneers have tapped out, I'm mature enough to stand up and go. Come Friday, we can all be a little bit of maroons. So I wish them the best of luck. We have had a very fruitful season of fall sports with state championship wrestlers and different athletes bringing home the gold. I hope Ms. Collins will pace those presentations out because when it comes time to present those resolutions, which I absolutely enjoy doing, all of y'all turn into it's crickets up here. So if you could limit that to like 3 a night.
Have wrestlers and track.
Yeah, wrestlers and track. So, but I will be going to Richmond to support our Wythe County youth. And, you know, for the past 8 years, I've sat on this board and we've always made education a priority when it comes to budget season. I don't see that changing this year. But we appreciate the SOL scores and turning out good students. But it's always exciting to go to the state capitol and explain to people where Wythe County is, or Wythe County. God forbid they get a signer of the Constitution's name right. But that's one thing I enjoy. But that's all I have. The next item on our agenda is a closed session under Virginia Code 2.23711A3 to discuss acquisition of real property in the Speedwell District, and 2.23711A5 prospective industries project element and gradient. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry, a second by Mr. Cook. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now in closed session. Entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Have a motion by Mr. Terry, a second by Mr. Morgan. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 All right, well, now in open session and back on the record, Mr. Terry, if you'll read the certification.
Whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with the Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by the Virginia law were discussed in this closed meeting to which the certification resolution applies. And only such public business matters as were identified in this motion convened in this closed meeting were heard, discussed, and are considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors. And I'll make that a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, have a motion by Mr. Terry, a second by Mr. Smith. We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 All right, so approved. And I'll open the floor up for any motions.
We need a motion for.
I would request that the board authorize the county administrator to execute an option agreement for lots in progress park for the joint industrial development authority.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Morgan, a second by Mr. Terry. Is there any discussion or questions on that motion? Right here, now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
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 So approved. Mr. Bear, is there anything else to come before the board?
If I may answer Mr. Burnett's question, as of December 31st, $56,000 have been received on the photo enforcement fund against the budget of $100,000, so a little bit ahead of budget on that amount.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Bear?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hankins? Mr. Farthing?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Collins? All right, hearing nothing to come before the board, we'll be in recess until March the 17th at
8:30.
18.
What?
8:30.
8:30.
Couldn't move past that. We like